The difference between a chatbot and a digital assistant comes down to the amount of data it has access to and the level of intelligence behind it.
I'm Rachel Bronstein, and this is Digital Transformation Behind the Curtain. In this series, you'll hear how innovative thinking strengthens customer relationships and improves the workplace. Welcome back to the Microsoft Partner Network podcast. Today, I'm joined in the studio with Christi Olson. She is the Head of Evangelism for Search at Microsoft. Welcome today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, Christi, you've done a lot of interesting things. You have a lot of articles out there. What are you up to? How'd you get here? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I have been in search for a little over 14 years now. I hate saying that because I'm like, no, it hasn't been that long. But I actually started as a marketing manager running digital marketing campaigns, and I got into paid search and organic search just as a way to stay connected with what's happening and how I could make our business discoverable online. And I've been very fortunate at Microsoft to not only be able to manage the accounts, but now I actually get to go out and evangelize and talk to our customers about overall what they're doing from a marketing standpoint, how does search fit into their marketing campaigns. And the evangelism part just means I am everywhere. You caught me here in Seattle on the only week I will be here over the next 12 weeks because I'll be out talking to our customers back to back nonstop.
Is that across the globe?
Across the globe. So I get my first trip over to the Australian market, which I'm really excited about. But I spend most of my time, like 95% of it, here in the United States, just at different conferences, events, meeting with our customers direct, internally hosted events and external hosted events. So something like the MS Inspire, which gets put on in the summertime, where NPM I know had a huge presence last year, to conferences like Advertising Week or the Search Marketing Expo.
So what is going on in search? What's the transformation, honestly, the digital transformation that's been happening in this area?
Well, it's interesting because when we think about digital transformation at Microsoft, they sort of put into 4 pillars. Search fits into the pillar about how do you engage, how do you connect with your customers. And when you think about a search engine, it really is customers are going to a URL and saying, I'm looking for the following thing. So search fits into that transformation because they're actively coming to us to say what they're looking for. And how it fits into that broader bucket is businesses need to know that they can no longer just be on, I hate saying, businesses can't rely on print alone. They actually have to rely on digital sources for their businesses to be discovered, to be found, and they need to be there to engage with their customers.
So what are you finding in your travels, the pain points and challenges or the changes that you're seeing with your customers?
Yeah, so when we think about the challenges we're seeing is that customers are going, well, we have so much time and we don't know where to focus. We don't know how to focus. Everybody knows they need a website. The problem is, how much time do you spend to make that site discoverable? What are the things people are searching for that's relevant to their website so that A, matches what the customer is thinking and what matches what marketing is thinking. There's a big disconnect a lot of times between marketers and the customers, where with the idea of transformation, it's becoming customer-centric and customer-focused and putting them first and putting your customer hat on instead of putting your marketing hat on, understanding the mind of the customer and what their needs and wants are.
So a lot of times, do you have any examples where, somebody was just like way off?
I can think of a lot of examples, but I don't like calling them out because then the business is like, no, don't say that. Yeah. I think examples would just be, trying to think how to say it without calling out the specific company, but a company had their own internal verbiage or language of how they talk about their products. The problem is the customers don't speak about the products in the same manner. We even have that here at Microsoft when we talk about something, and when we go and speak externally, like, I don't understand what you're saying.
So many acronyms.
We use the acronyms. How we talk about our products might not match exactly to how our customers always talk about the products.
For sure.
And so it's getting into that alignment and starting to look at marketing, looking at what we do from a customer standpoint. And if we aren't aligning to what our customers say and how they look for our business, then reevaluating how do we adjust what we do from that standpoint. I know that's not super specific, but
well, I have plenty of examples in my own head I can think. Yeah. So Something that you've been talking a lot about is artificial intelligence. Nikki Smith, too, on the podcast. And so talk a little bit about how AI and search and where that is all changing.
Yeah. And so when I think of artificial intelligence, a lot of people think, oh, it's such a scary, scary topic. But if you drop the word artificial and you think of what the intent is behind it, it's about the intelligence that you get from essentially having tools and technology learn, perceive, have more the cognitive or human type emotions or connections. So when we think about where is AI coming into play, it's all about taking what we do and making it easier, faster, more efficient. So if you've heard, like Nikki and I sit on the same marketing team, we spend a lot of time going, okay, how does AI play into how we engage with our customers? And so you can think of artificial intelligence. I break it down. I've had a lot of articles where I try to break into one of two camps. What is the impact of artificial intelligence at the user or customer level? And what is the impact at the marketer level? The customer level is all about personalization and customization. You can think about this as Netflix. When I go into Netflix, because I've watched so many movies, the recommendations it gives me are based on AI on the back end, essentially predicting what of the entire database I might like. That is a very customer personalized type of view. From the marketer standpoint, it's about how do you become more efficient with what you're doing? How do you spend less time doing really tactical stuff and use things like machine learning, predictive analytics to go from data into actions and insights, and then also just spend less time doing those tactical things.
Have you been doing this? What have your team, how have you guys been using this?
Yeah, so across our marketing org, we are actually just getting underway with and I'm trying to remember what we want to call them. It is a data scientist type of team of individuals that are using predictive analytics to try to do some lead scoring to understand the different qualities of leads that come into our line of business. Mm-hmm. And then how do we apply that across what we do from a marketing standpoint? So how do we use that across our email marketing, our search marketing? Because even though we're a search engine, we actually still go out and use search to acquire new users. How do we do it from a display and social media perspective? And so we're trying to even take the making things more efficient and applying it across what we do from a marketing perspective.
Very cool. And there are other things that are kind of like AI, right? When you think about cognitive services, when you think about chatbots.
Exactly. Well, and I don't know if I mentioned it, and I have to go back and think. When we think about what the biggest use of AI is here at Microsoft, do you want to take a guess?
I have no idea.
Bing.
The
search engine. It goes back to on the consumer.
Yeah, we're saying
I love to
trick
throw
question.
I love throwing that one out there because when we think about the tool that people use on a regular basis, entire search engine is based on algorithms and personalization. It's based on what you searched for and then making the recommendations of what else you might be interested in, as well as personalizing those search results based on how you've interacted, either from previous queries or what you've clicked on in the past. So it is all about personalization and customization, which I love putting that out there in terms of, now when we think of cognitive services and we think about Microsoft and Satya's quote about AI amplifying human ingenuity, the amplification and how it amplifies human ingenuity is the fact that artificial intelligence now has the ability to mirror some of our cognitive capabilities. So you have the Cortana cognitive skill set, which looks at things that sound scary, like natural language processing. It's voice. It's the fact that you can speak to it and understands what you say. And then they have a bunch of speech capabilities, which then translates that to the machine to understand it. And so the machine can speak back. That's what a digital assistant is. I talk to Cortana. I say, hey, what's on my schedule for today? And Cortana's like, hey, by the way, before you start going to Malbecs and you start doing all your gardening because this morning, make sure you remember you have this appointment today, this afternoon. You need to be there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it also has something that I used last night, taking my mobile device, my phone, and I took a picture of a plant that I saw. Because I'm like, hey, this is really cool looking. I'd like to get this in my garden. Sorry, it's springtime. Gardening's on my mind. What is this thing? So that I can go essentially to a local gardening store and find it. And so it uses computer vision. It's all about image search, where I could take the picture, crop into the flower, and it told me it's something called spurge, which I'd never heard of before, but it's this really funky looking plant that's all over the place in container gardens around here. And so I'm using artificial intelligence to say, can you tell me what this is? Can you give me more information and context?
What did you use to do that?
So with that, I used the Bing app on my Apple device. And so I take a picture, there's a little button that says search within the image, upload the image, crop it, and it showed me similar images as well as web results for what that was. Wow. Really cool.
Yeah. I didn't know we could do that, honestly.
Yeah. It's the whole idea of, it's not just search, it's intelligent search. Yeah. It's getting people answers. It's giving them access to things they didn't know they were even looking for. So using images to find more information, more context. Part of the idea Bing has just started releasing for their intelligent search is when you search like, is kale good for you? Yeah. It depends who you talk to. Yeah. There's a camp of it's good for you or it's bad for you. We're starting the search results to actually display them side by side. So if you're asking a question, we're not necessarily going to say, here's the definitive answer, but here's both of the views. You have to figure it out for yourself.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Takes a little bit of that bias out, which is something that's pretty heated right now, right?
Yes. There's a lot of talk about how do you display information without trying to put the bias into the results. So it's looking at the questions people are asking and trying to bring a holistic view of what the response could be.
So that's a product design thing. That's really new kind of design thinking.
It is, and it's being integrated into Bing, and so you can go and test that out today.
That's super cool.
Now, you mentioned chatbots.
Yeah.
So as we take all these different cognitive services, computer vision, machine learning, predictive analytics of seeing things you might want to know, that's essentially what we're calling intelligent agents coming into play. And I say intelligent agents because it's a higher level of the type of technology on the back end. Within that bucket, you have things like a digital assistant, your Cortana, Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, fill in the blank, as well as things like chatbots. The difference between a chatbot and a digital assistant comes down to the amount of data it has access to and the level of intelligence behind it. So if you think of Cortana, or let's say you have an Amazon Echo, so you have the Alexa, you give it access to a lot of information about you, so it knows about you. And as you engage with it, it learns from each of those interactions to provide you with more customized, personalized results over time. Chatbots, on the other hand, are created by a company, a product, a service, a brand, and they serve to answer the questions about that. It can have some of your personalized information, like if you log into it, so it knows, oh, I'm a customer of Expedia.
Right. Yeah.
It knows my travel loyalties, et cetera, so it can provide more customized results. But it's really about answering questions, or at least it has been in the past, answering questions that people are asking through a conversational type of interface.
And Microsoft has chatbots. In my head, I'm always thinking about like Facebook Messenger and some of the interesting bots that are being used through that. But can you talk a little bit about what Microsoft has, or even?
Yep. Microsoft has the bot framework, and we call it a framework because a lot of times when you think about when you create a chatbot, it's created for a specific channel. Microsoft actually created what they call a framework that's based off a bot connector. So you create one set of code and you can deploy it across, I believe it's like 10 or 15 different channels. Those channels are everything from Bing, Big Ads, to Facebook Messenger, Kik, Twilio, WeChat. Yeah, there's a ton of them. I'm trying to envision the slide in my head that has it on there. We have a lot of different sources.
Yeah.
Some of them I'd never even heard of until I started looking at that. But the interesting thing is it means for marketers or for developers, you code once, you can select the channels you want that bot to be available in, and it gets deployed across them. And there's going to be some restrictions and capabilities that are better for one channel versus another. It helps takes that into consideration with how it displays that chatbot across that network. And what's really interesting when you start to think about bots and how they pertain to digital assistants and how they pertain to search is you're going to go from getting an answer to a question that the really savvy marketers are going from question answer to question action. Mm-hmm. So it's not just answering the question, but then saying, oh, you've asked where can you buy this beautiful bomber jacket you're wearing today? You can buy it at this store here in Bellevue. Great. Now, do you want me to go ahead and add it to your shopping cart? Mm-hmm. Do you want me to, taking that next step can actually be programmed into chatbots. And that's where it's going to be a change and a shift for a lot of marketers. And that goes back to digital transformation.
Well, in sales.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge for sales. A big could be decrease in sellers, right? It's already happening with all the automation, which is, I mean, marketing and sales are just like converging. Something we talk a lot about with social selling and whatnot. So that's super interesting.
It's almost like a new channel that's opening up.
Yeah, and it's connecting the journey. So hard as a marketer, even with this podcast right now. I'm hoping all you listen, and then somehow you get to partner.microsoft.com or maybe something on Bing. I hope. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know because right now it's not connected. The data isn't connected. But with something like that, with a chatbot, I mean, it's all the way to purchase or conversion.
It is. And what's interesting, so I've spent a lot of time talking internally within even our own Bing team of how are we thinking about chatbots, and talking to people think Cortain, how are we thinking about digital assistants? And right now, and it's a somewhat of a bold statement to say, but when we think about what makes them so interesting is the fact that you're having a conversation, and it's a really natural way to communicate. And so the bold statement would be, communication and talking is driving a lot more engagement with customers. And so we see that in the future, like 10, maybe 15 years down the road, that brands, companies are going to need to invest in this type of technology. It will be disrupting how people engage. And that is going to be one of the preferred methods of communication. It's going to be less because they're not device specific. It's not that I'm on my phone or a laptop. They're device agnostic. So you can actually have them through, they could be coded through multiple different types of devices and environments. And it's all about having a conversation, which goes back to artificial intelligence. The value to the customer, customization, personalization, the marketer, is you create a better, more deeper relationship with your consumer, with your customers. And conversationally, that's one of the easiest ways to do it.
Do you see a lot of the customers you're working with picking up on this, or it's kind of a slow drip?
It's somewhere between I would say it's beyond a drip, but is not a running faucet quite yet.
You might just have the bot up, but are you really going to the next level with it?
Yeah, and I think part of it, and it's interesting because even we're talking about chatbots essentially in a commerce-based environment, but also there's a team here at Microsoft that created a chatbot that was based off of one of two different personality types to help the sales team figure out what should they be focusing on from a business development standpoint? How do they engage with their customers? Where it took a bunch of external third-party data to say, you know what, there was a flood happening in fill in city name here. You have a customer there. You should reach out proactively and send a note to let them know, hey, heard about this was happening. I'm thinking about you. Hope everything's okay. You go back to the relationship side of business, where it has nothing to do with making that sale, but everything about a relationship. And they're thinking about chatbots for helping them streamline their work. Where do they focus? How do they focus? How do you take all the data and information and streamline it into how you engage with your customers and clients?
Well, and focus in on those engagements. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of digital and technology, is that maybe you actually could focus in on the conversation and what they really need versus tons of Excel sheets or this work that maybe you shouldn't have to do. And the AI or whatever can do it for you.
Well, and what I love about it is I have a friend that worked on that project as a consultant, and he was more of a UX designer. Mm-hmm. And what he started looking at is why don't we think about developing a chatbot like how we develop a user interface? Let's think about how do you actually make the conversations sound like a conversation and less like a robot. And that's actually one of the trends we're starting to see with artificial intelligence and disrupting even conversational platforms is how do you build a bot to be empathetic? How do you add empathy into that conversational flow? And it was really fun talking to him this summer because he started to outline conversational dialogue. So if you go to the chatbot and you type in, hey, what's the top 5 things I need to focus on today? He created conversation decision trees. What directions could that conversation go? How do you do Boolean yes and no type of answers? Mm-hmm. How do you make it sound much more like a conversation than I've got 10 programmed answers? and I can only do these 10 things. How do you make it so that if the chatbot or a digital assistant doesn't know the answer to that question, it's not like Siri today where it's like, I'm sorry, I did not understand you. Please restate the question. Yeah. I hear that way too often.
Way too often, yeah.
But how do you state it multiple different ways so it doesn't sound repetitive? And it's similar to like if you and I have a conversation, you might look at me and go, what?
Yeah, yeah.
You're conveying the same thing, but without saying the exact same thing over and over and over again.
It starts making me think of like that movie Her, or there's a lot of these Black Mirrors.
Yeah.
things could go really great or it gets a little
really
creepy.
Wrong. Yeah. Yes and no.
Yeah. It's yes and no.
And no. Yeah, it's interesting as we think about artificial intelligence because sci-fi and what we've seen in sci-fi movies have shaped so much of our perception today. And even here at Microsoft, we talk about like, okay, is it our chatbots and digital assistants, the Terminator and Skynet?
Right.
Or something else. And it's like, no. I think sci-fi has made it seem a lot more scary and into the worldish. But if we bring it back to like, we have the opportunity right now to create the tools, to create the technology. So let's look at how we create it. Let's make it empathetic. I love the fact we have AI design principles, and there's teams and divisions here at Microsoft looking at how do you make sure we're not biased? So do we have a diverse representation of people creating the tools and creating the technology? It's not a bunch of white men sitting in a room. It is men, women from not just the US, from across the globe, from across different economic backgrounds. When we think about AI and the data that's being used to train AI, how do we make sure that that data is also inclusive of essentially everyone? So that way we're not training AI with a bias either. So I love that internally here at Microsoft, we're thinking about these big things and bigger picture of how do we make sure that what we're doing won't impact the future of AI in a negative way. So it also goes back to like privacy, being transparent with data, how data is getting used. I love the fact that Microsoft took the leap forward and saying, here's all the information you have about privacy, how we use your data and information, so you know where it's being used and how. I love that because then with Cortana, I know what I've given her access to. And like, oh, I should probably also give her access not just to my work account, but to my personal accounts that sees like, I've got a dentist appointment for my son. I've got a doctor's appointment. So I can coordinate my life better, knowing both my work life and my personal life.
Yes. I don't have a follow-up. I'm like, hell yeah. So you kind of mentioned, I couldn't help but think about Ready Player One, which is out right now. Haven't seen it yet. Went to the really cool activation at South by Southwest a few weeks ago. A lot of virtual reality, augmented reality going on. And in some sense, some people are, saying Ready Player One, like, it's almost here. Like, is that here? And to your point where like sci-fi movies, are we in that age now? So my question is, where do you see things going? Like, what are the movies of today going to talk about?
Well, I think it's funny because I've been waiting for I have to figure out how do I state this. I've been waiting for Minority Report, or at least the technology Minority Report to come available, where I want that like glass wall that you can like touch and interact with and you can move things.
Yes.
It's essentially like a surface. We're still not quite to that technology.
Yeah.
Less the creepy tracking you everywhere of Minority One or knowing Minority Report, knowing what's happening before it happens. Not that side of it.
Yeah.
I want the cool tech from there available today. So it's interesting because when we look at sci-fi movies, the tech always seems like it's so far out there, and we haven't quite caught up from the tech standpoint. So a great example of this, I actually think, and I always have to stop for a minute going, okay, Star Trek, not Star Wars.
Yes.
Because when I get those confused.
Yeah, you're going to offend a lot of people.
I offend a lot of people. So when you think of Star Trek, they had comms. Yeah. It's like our cell phone today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the replicator, or not replicator, but the transporter, so I don't have to commute. So like you came from Austin. Yes. So can you imagine just standing there and having somebody hit a button and you'd be in Austin in like 2 minutes?
That would be amazing.
And so with technology and sci-fi movies of today, when we look at the augmented and virtual reality, we are not to the point of living in that experience.
Yeah.
Like where Ready Player One is coming out. I love the book. I've heard I might not love the movie if I love the book because they definitely differentiate
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is that they're living in an augmented and virtual reality based world.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of taking somewhat, I guess it's not quite mixed reality, because a lot of what happened in the book at least was in an augmented environment, but your body is still doing actions in the physical space, which I thought was sort of cool.
Yeah.
It's the idea of us moving from the information era to the experience era. And experience meaning that augmented virtual reality, the experience is all about you. It's about you as the customer and being consumer first, and you're the center of that attraction. That's where you're at with an environment like Ready Player One. It's the world is sort of centering around you, your likes, your preferences, how you engage with it. We're definitely not there yet. So as we think about stepping blocks and stepping stones, chatbots are a stepping stone for us to get into that era, because you're thinking about how do you have a conversation with your consumer? How do you anticipate and answer those questions, and not just in a robotic way, but more of an empathetic way? Digital assistants are taken to the next level. Then how do you ask questions and give you proactive feedback, recommendations, remind you of everything in the world surrounding you? And there we actually have really good adoption from a device standpoint. So you start to think of how many smart home speakers there are. I think one of the reports I saw in January is something like 10 to 12 million smart home speakers, which is a pretty good amount. Cell phones, I'm like, wait, where's my phone? It's in the other room. Cell phones, there's something like, 150 some million smartphones out there. Almost everyone has one.
Yeah.
Or at least everyone over the age of 18.
No, not even.
I'm going to start there.
10.
I'm not willing to go there yet. Everyone has a smartphone, which means you have a digital assistant, because most of those phones are Android or iOS. They're built in. There's very few other brands, but very few of them. So then you think of augmented and virtual reality. Those devices have not reached consumer adoption yet.
Yeah.
They're still pretty early on. There's early adopters went out and purchased them. They're playing with them. But the adoption hasn't gotten to the point that we're ready to live in that type of environment. But there are a lot of really cool experiences that are being created around augmented or virtual reality that are getting us there in tiny, tiny steps.
Yeah.
Like you've probably seen some of them. I love the fact that Microsoft has been working with HoloLens and in the medical profession to help visualize and show, like if you're a med student doing training, how do you actually do the surgery and do it on an augmented human? So you're not actually practicing on a real life patient. You might be practicing on a virtual patient and getting that experience. How do you visualize different things from that standpoint? I'm like, oh, I love it.
For the people listening, those are they're business decision makers, and maybe they're marketers, and they're listening and they're thinking about, where do I start? Like, what can I do in my business today? What is your strategy? What's the strategy?
And we've been all over the place talking about lots of really cool, fun, exciting tech that's coming.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people, I typically start off going, okay, number one, if you are a business owner, people are looking for your business and they're doing it through search. Whether they're doing it through text or voice, search engines are still the predominant way people are finding businesses and finding things. I've seen, I look at a lot of different reports, and depending whether you look at ComScore, which sort of measures search engines, to one of the a bajillion different surveys out there that are looking at how consumers do their search. I've seen it from 55 to 60 up to 80% of people start looking for something on a search engine.
Yeah.
Over half.
Right.
Every survey is over half. It just depends on there.
Yeah.
So if you're a business owner, make sure that you're where people are. And then to think about it, start moving toward that conversational world. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't mean to go conversational that you have to go and rebuild the wheel or rebuild everything from the ground up. Think about the types of questions your customers are asking and how do you develop content? How do you answer those questions in ways that will make the customer feel valued, make them feel like you get where they're coming from and where they're at? Some of that's through good old-fashioned organic search. Like recreating the content on your website to make it sound much more conversational and less like you were creating it for a bot that crawled the website so you could rank on Bing and Google.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's a good point you're making.
Like people, like SEOs, if you're listening, I'm calling you out. Stop writing for the bots, start writing it for the customers and the language that customers are using. And so you think about voice, it's optimizing for that conversational tone and nature. And then when we talk about voice, people think of voice in one of two ways. They think of voices in terms of voice search and or voice skills. Skills essentially is I say, hey, Cortana, turn off the lights in my living room. So essentially Cortana has accessed some other technology. That skill is you teaching Cortana to take the action through typically IoT. You're engaging with some other tool, technology, or device.
Yeah.
Right now, skills are exciting, but even I sat in a presentation where Amazon's like there's a lot of skills out there and not as many people are using them.
Yeah.
Make sure you're there from a voice search perspective. And so you're thinking about the questions people are asking. The other one is thinking about chatbots, because as they search with their voice, a lot of that's happening through a digital assistant. Can you create a chatbot that not only answers the questions people are asking, but then takes them to that next step in the action? And something I didn't mention before, which is worth calling out, is the digital assistants can connect into a chatbot. So if I'm asking Cortana a question, she might go to the web to find the information, but if I am using a chatbot and I've used on a regular basis, she might know, go to that chatbot to get the answer. And so having that connection point is almost like starting down the road of creating your own digital assistant for your brand and your products and service. Not quite there, but getting there.
So partners could take that and instill it into the businesses they work with. This Cortana and these, they can really have that part of the services they add.
Yeah.
I don't know how many are, to be honest.
I'm going to assume not a lot.
Not a lot, but that would be such an added value. Go
Yeah.
into these businesses and really show how they can use Cortana and make lives easier.
Yeah. And I think about even just chatbots. You asked me earlier how many people are using them, or not, I guess not how many people are using, how many brands or companies. A lot of companies are starting to dig in. They're starting to test the waters with chatbots to figure out, how do we use it? How do we deploy it? Where do we use it? Is it only on our website? And that's part of the beauty, I'd say, of the Microsoft Bot Framework, is you can deploy it on your website, but then to make sure it's discoverable, you can check the box that says Bing or check the box that says Cortana, so that the search engines know that that bot's out there. And so that when people are looking, it can surface them. And right now, you can actually surface a bot in the search results. Most people aren't aware of that. So you can engage and surface the chatbot and have a customer engage with your chatbot directly in the SERP.
Oh, cool.
The search engine results page, sorry.
Instead
Goes
of
back to
typing
acronyms.
in and keeping, you just go right to the bot.
Yeah, which is
that's
pretty
cool.
cool. And so it goes back to hey, you can have customers make direct one-to-one interactions pretty quickly and easily and make them discoverable.
Yeah.
So it's a big area of opportunity for brands today to think about, how is their business getting disrupted and how do you engage with the customer in conversation naturally? It's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Christi, for being here. I learned a lot. There's a lot of information that you gave us and for partners to go and start doing today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. The pleasure was all mine.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review if you like what you heard. Join the conversation on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter at RK Bronstein and at MS Partner. And you can hear from more great speakers during Microsoft Inspire from July 15th to 19th in Las Vegas. Visit partner.microsoft.com/inspire for more information.